Welcome. Happy New Year's Day. I figured new year, new you, new way to look at laying out a console. So let's take a look and see what we can do with the console and maybe come up with some new ideas. So let's go ahead and open LV1. So for this video, I'm using a different microphone. I am using a different interface. And I'm not going to be passing any audio through LV1 today. But we're just going to build a show file and come up with some ideas. Okay, let's go full screen here. Okay. First of all, let's take a look at Mixer 1. So this is from last week. As you can see here at the very top, I've got the colors that I did. I have the group that I did. And everything else is blank. So let's take a look at our setup page. Mixer setting. Let's just do a 32 channel session today. And we want to latch mixer modes is what I'll do for this. We'll do that. And we got some devices that we aren't going to be using because this right here is the machine that I'm actually recording to right now. One thing to take a look at is down here in troubleshooting. You want to make sure that you have logging enabled. Right now I have it set to previous session. That doesn't really matter. DSP optimized is an option you could do, or mixer aligned. So if you are running low on DSP, you can just switch to DSP optimized. I like to have entire mixer aligned plugged in. So let's go ahead and do new. Let's not save that one. Okay. So here we are. Let's put a note in. Okay. Okay. Mixer 1. So, first of all, you have to know what your inputs are going to be. Then you need to know what your monitor mixes are going to be. So it's typically, let's just say we're going to do 8 monitor mixes. And let's say we're going to max out our 32 inputs. So let's just start here and just call it, I'm going to have to shift my keyboard over. I have a upboard keyboard I'm using. So let's name it kick in. Oh. Okay, kick in, kick out. Okay, and then typically end up going up to, let's say you got your kick, snare, hat, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, maybe a 4th tom. So you could call this one overhead. And now you got an option. You could do 2 overhead. You could do 2 overhead channels, or you could flip this one to stereo. It's however you want to do it. So now you see you've got, on each side, you have 2 lines, 2 meters. Where this is a mono channel, this is a stereo channel. You could do it stereo, or you could do, let's go back to mono. So you could name that, you can do whichever one you want to do. Doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's your session. So let's just go with that. So now the next thing that, see, I would have gone through, I would have labeled everything, like, for example, and then you could do, sometimes we like to double mic a guitar. You have options. You could do guitar 1 left, guitar 1 right, or you could do flip to stereo, and you could do it that way. If you wanted to, it's up to you. If you're building a session, it's your session. Do it however you want. Okay, let's go there. Flip to mono. And then So I'm gonna skip this just for the sake of time. Let's just pretend that these are the other drums, and then I put a little buffer kind of here. So like DI box and then the amp. So just for the sake of time, we're skipping these. These are the rest of your drums. Okay. So now you've got, let's say you've got acoustic. Skip a few. Okay. And then the same thing. You might want to just do a stereo DI. Maybe not. Whatever. Whatever you want to do. And then let's go over here. The way I'm able to tab through these channels is with the tab button or the shift tab. Tab goes forward, shift tab goes backwards. So we have a kind of a basic session put together. Okay. Let's go ahead and color code these up in preset. Okay. I'm not using touch screens on this today. Okay. What's really cool is right down here, it tells you what the channel is. I'm going with the colors that I use. Okay, almost there. I think that was the last one. Well, one more. So my last video, I used a Telefunken M81. Today I'm using a Sennheiser 935, I think, 934. I should know this as I'm obsessed with microphones. 935. That's right, the 945 or 935. That's right. Also have my coffee. Okay, so we have a basic session. You can do, whatever your typical input list is. That's what we got. So last video I used the M81 plugged into LV1 through the DigiGrid D interface. Today I'm using a Focusrite interface. If you remember from the last one, we talked about input gain and how turning that gain knob affects the tone of what you're using. So I'm going to be using different microphones in different videos on this channel, and we're just going to play around and see what different things sound like, because every single thing affects everything. Okay, so let's get back to building a session. So we got our drums, got our bass. I play bass. Green's my favorite color, so I chose green for bass. The reason why I went with red on drums is because on the X32, there was something about how, like you do your drums first typically, but, any order you want to do, it's your session, not mine. I'm just showing you an example. For some reason, red was the first choice for drums. Maybe it was the first one in the list or something. I don't remember, but ever since then, I've always used red on drums. Every console I've had the option of color, I've always used red on drums. And then bass, because I play bass, and green's my favorite color. Blue for guitar. Acoustic guitar was yellow, maybe because maybe the X32 or M32 defaults to yellow, so I just left it like that. Keys I left as yellow as well. Vocals I do as white. So now we got some subgroups. We got some effects. Got some monitor mixes. And then we have masters. Okay. It's a new year. We're going to have a new thought process on a mixing console. Just some ideas. This is, if you want to do it this way, you can. You don't have to. So let's go to our matrix section. I've been using the matrix outs for years. Okay. So there's two thoughts you could have on this. The reason why I do matrix outs on the PA, give the left side a matrix and the right side a matrix, is so that I can EQ them separately. So if I wanted to go to the EQ here and I needed to, I wouldn't do this, but if I needed to do that on that one, but I needed to do that on the other side. Now, if we look here, it's hard to see here. Let's go a little bit more of a dramatic. Now I can EQ each side separately. If for some reason I had to do a massive hump right there on the right side of the building, the right PA, I could do that. And then I could do that. But then I can go over to my master EQ over the entire overall, and then I can do some kind of whatever I need to there. So now I balanced out the tone of each side as much as I could with these crazy EQs, and now I have an overall. So that's why I've been doing it that way. There's a reset. And then we're going to go up. Okay. So we're looking at new thought processes on how to do things for this video. So here's something that I do. So the way I look at a PA is I always have a left side, I always have a right side, I always have subs, but I don't always have fills. So because I come from the analog world, I'm used to the very last output on my output section as being the right side of the PA, second to the last is left, third to the last is subs, and then fourth to the last is fills. So this is my thought process. Oh, sorry. Okay. So now I have fills, subs, left and right. And then so this is my feed to smart, which is typically a room mic plugged into a channel on the focus right, and then the smart channel, the output of this, fed to the other channel. So like maybe input 1 is the room mic, input 2 is the master fader of the output. Okay. So up until recently, I've been doing what's called aux-fed subs. If you're watching this video, you probably know about aux-fed subs. It's basically you treat the subs like a monitor mix, and then you send from that channel, like the kick drum, floor tom, maybe your other toms, maybe the keyboards, and definitely the bass. You would send that to an aux, which I used to do this one. I always did number 8. And if I could learn to spell. So I always did, it was just the way I did it. I always ran number 8 into an output into the subs. I don't do it that way anymore. Okay. I've been watching a lot of videos and taking a look at how the major touring guys do it, like the A-list guys, and this is how they do it. Now, this isn't every single one, every single time. This is how it's done, but this is a way that they've been doing it. This is just take it or leave it, whatever you want to do. So this is, we'll get there. So we have the right side of the PA. Let's take matrix 12, and we'll do post pan right side. Okay. Now, if you press this Alt button, it puts it at unity. So let's say you really screw things up. Let's move that up there. If you hit Alt, moves it to unity, moves it to unity, moves it to unity. So that's kind of cool. This is similar to how an Avid works for their matrix section. Okay, left side. So then I will go to here. There we go. Now I can put this at unity. Now I put these up. Let's go to this 2. So now I'm sure everyone's realizing now, maybe you're not, maybe you are, it's fine. Whatever this fader's doing is feeding both of these equally. So if the left side's way too soft, you could do that, or way too loud, you could do that. Okay. And then if you have like a Lake LM44, for example, you could just not worry about high-pass filters on your outputs. Okay. So next up, this is the part that's different now, how I do it now. So I go to the subs, and I've been doing it this way now. after watching some videos and thinking about it. And I've been taking the master left right and sending it to a matrix. There's a ton of thought processes. There's a lot of explanations on it, but I'm not going to get into why. That's just how I've been doing it. Just it's a new thought process, a new way of thinking about things. Okay, so now I have the masters, left, right, subfill. You don't have to do it that way if you don't want. It's up to you. Okay, so here's one thing that I've been doing is first I get my inputs all labeled. The inputs are labeled. Now I go to the end, the very end of the chain, and start working my way forward. Okay, so now I have masters. These are done. I always do my inputs. I get it all labeled so I know what is what. I've been doing that for years. Just get it all written out, what's what. And that way, when you go to the very end of the chain, you can start working your way forward and you won't get lost as easily. So there's this new thing I've been doing called group-to-group routing. Haven't been able to do it until now. I don't get to mix on Digicos, or other high-end consoles of that caliber. So I haven't been able to do group-to-group patching until some of these newer updates that they have released for LV1. So here's one thing I do, and this is where I think about it for a little bit, and I think about how I want to do it. So this is going to be, so group-to-group patching is, or routing, or however you want to call it, is, I know it isn't the correct term, group-to-group patching, but sending a group into a group. Let's say I want the first 4 of these to be crush groups. I call it clean and dirty. So this would be the dirty groups, and then this would be the clean groups. The dirty groups have just an asinine amount of compression. The clean ones have 0 compression. So in order to show what I'm thinking about, you could do, let's call it drums dirty. Let's see. Okay. Now, yes, I did skip the keys. I skipped the acoustics, but we're just going to kind of toss it together a little bit and just get some ideas going. So now we'll do, okay. So drums clean, bass clean. I think lighting guys call what I'm doing fat fingering, where you hit multiple things at the same time. Okay, so this guitar clean doesn't mean the clean channel of a Fender dual reverb, for example. It's just the no compression channel. Okay, so I have drums, bass, guitar, vocals. That's the crush stuff. So it's insane amounts of compression. Drums clean, bass, guitar, and vocal clean are no compression. We'll get to our effects later. So I keep this in mind as I am working my way from the end to the beginning. So let's go here. I went to the monitor section on the right, the one that lit up. I went from the groups down to the monitor. Now I want to do a final group for each one. So here's what I do here. Okay, so now this is going to be the complete volume of the drums, all of the band instruments, and all of the vocals. So in LV1, you have to do it this way. Hopefully one day we will get more subgroups, but until then, this is what you have to do. So I go back to my subgroups, and now I go to monitor 9 through 16. So I have drum final. Let's put that at unity. So I just put my drums at final, and then my clean at final. And even though I'm trying to be a little quick on this, I'm still going to do all of these ones. So we got bass and guitar. So I have just the 2 drum groups going to the final drums. I have a dirty and a clean for the band. Okay. And then, and there's that. Okay. So now, you don't necessarily have to do it the way I'm doing it. Just maybe take a look at what I'm doing, think about it, and invent your own thing. That's the beauty of this. Okay. Next up, something to be aware of on mixing consoles in the digital world is, if you take a look here on the routing, these are routed to the left-right. So are these. On consoles in the digital world, if you route Mr. Kick Drum, both of our kick channels, into the mains, but also to the groups, you end up with comb filtering, which means things are going to cancel out. You could have 50% of the volume coming out of the PA. Something to be thinking about. X32s and M32s. I'm not trying to trash talk anyone here, but the X32 and the M32 will do that. If you route drums into subgroups and into the master fader, this guy, you will get comb filtering, and it will be dramatically lower. I've experienced that. That's fun. So here's what I do. Go to your patching page. Internal means internal patching of things. So the main, I only use the main fader, but I believe this is main out. This is the second one, and this is the third one. So if we go and take a look at what those are, center mono. So if you go to your patching, this is main left right, center mono. What I do is I just go to this guy and just go straight down and pull them out. There you go. Now nothing is routed to the mains, but these guys, oh, sorry, wrong page. That's going to the subgroups. So now I'm only using one screen. This is where 2 screens come in really handy, because then you could have patching on a screen and then groups on another screen. Okay, so we have drums dirty. Let's go up here. We want to put, this is the hi-hat. Okay. You want to go and send, do not put the hi-hat or overheads in it, but go to Tom 1, Tom 2, Tom 3, Tom 4, and not that guy. Okay. So next up, because you don't want to smash your metal stuff, your hi-hat and your overheads. Okay. So our drums clean is 5. Number 5. Number 5. So let's go take a look at this. Oh, that's handy. They're both, look at that. That's cool. The clean one is where I send everything for the drums. Okay? Because it's not crushing it. It's just having the compressor in there for the sake of having the same plug-in for latency reasons. So you got your bass. Another thing I do, set channel color, red. Bass dirty is green. Guitar, And then we go back to red. And then green. Okay. So now I know that when I see red, I know it's drums, bass, guitar. Okay. And then we could go to our final right here. Set colors here, drums, bass. Oh, that's band. For band, I'll do blue. That's what I've been doing for a long time. So now, I hope this is making sense. You send it to 2 groups, which are down here. You don't send your groups to the mains. You send them to the final monitor mix, which we basically turned into a subgroup because we put it at Unity. And then these guys are the ones that go to the mains. Now, whatever you do with your channels that are hitting your groups, and whatever you do with your crush and clean group, this guy is now the master level for those guys. I just recently started doing that actually this year. I've never done that before. And what it seemed like it to me was, it seemed like it just tightened everything up and glued things together better. That's what it seemed like to me. Okay, so now we've got 1, 2, 3. Let's do 6 monitors. And then let's do this. LV1 does not have send and returns for effects. It only has one of those. It doesn't have the 2. I believe it only has sends. So I've been doing for verbs, because the first digital console I was on the most was the X32. So a lot of this is based off of the color choices I did there. I use this as returns, and this is sends. So you don't have to do it the way I do it, but lead verb. Okay. So now we want to, good, they're not going to the mains. Put these at Unity. One thing I found was by using a plate on the lead singer and a hall on the background singers, it made the vocals bigger. And then this is the overall vocal delay, and then a dedicated snare verb, a dedicated toms verb. Okay. So, channel. No, let's go to rack. So, one thing I've been doing is, let's get rid of that and that. My personal way of doing it is I EQ into the effect. I EQ before the effect, because a band I mixed on a specific console the most, like their console, I always had to cut 6K on the vocal delay. I always had to do something like that, somewhere around there. It's not exact, but it was always around 6K. Otherwise, I had this weird piercy delay happening. So that's a little thing for you. Okay. So I get rid of everything but EQ at the beginning, and sometimes I'll even get rid of it there, because on the return section, I went down a page. I was here, came down here. On the return, you also have that. For this stuff, what I'll do sometimes is, if you hold in Alt on your keyboard, see how it lit up there? See how when I push it in, it turns on? See that? When you take it away, it goes away. So, if you take all these things and do remove plugin, see what's happening there? Isn't that cool? Okay. I try to EQ my sends. It went away. Okay, no big deal. Let's just go back to. I try to EQ my sends, and when I do that, then I find that I personally do not need to worry about the returns EQing them. Maybe not, but it's not really something that I found that I end up missing. So if I just put an EQ there, good, it locked. So you can just do something like that. So next up, you don't necessarily have to be in this exact order, but so here's my verb returns. Actually, I need one more. Okay. And then I want to do choose color. Okay. And then go up and we'll look at routing. Put it in the mains. Cool. Otherwise, you'll be like, what's happening here? Next up, we need to choose some reverbs. I find that you can't really go wrong with, I don't have the license installed here, but here's another thing you want to do. Flip to stereo. These have to be stereo. Okay. So then I will do post pan, post pan, post pan. I may have missed one. Post pan. Okay, let's go to this guy because I think I missed you. Now, no matter what you do with your pan knob, we'll send it to side. I'm sure that if you're watching my channel, you probably know all this stuff, but if you don't, hopefully some stuff I'm doing might be of use. So I don't have a license for every single thing on this particular machine, but there's my delay. Now, this gives me delay throws. Okay? So there's that. So we're sitting at about half an hour right now. So I just kind of roughed in a console in half an hour. Subs, I'll do set the channel color because bass. So this is a fun thing you could do. And then fills could be that. Why not? Who cares? Smart is usually, I do yellow for smart, usually. Let's do that. Okay. So now we can go hit Alt. And go all. And there you go. Okay. So now there's tons and tons of arguments on this whole sending it from the master left right into the subs. The thought process behind it is if you do it that way, you're post all latency. You may not have a send from dedicated, like a dedicated send from channels, but it's post latency. So like your master left and right is at the very end of latency. So if you send it into these outputs here, subs left right. I do something different on here, but sub left right. That's after all latency, like your parallel bus processing, your whatever you do. So that's the thought process behind it. You don't have to do it that way if you don't want, but it's something fun to think about. Now, what I do on fills is different. I do this a different way. I don't send the master left right into the fills. Here's why. I don't need a kick drum in that small speaker. I don't need a bass guitar in that small speaker. I need acoustic guitars, keyboards, vocals, maybe electrics. Because nowadays everybody's running Kempers or pods or, you name it. So my fills, the way I do that is I come out of, I just do post fader. Band. and then set these at Unity. There we go. I do the band subgroup for that exact same reason as the subwoofers, because this final group is after all latencies, so then it's less stuff to try to figure out to get things time aligned. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. You may not have as 100% precise of a send to the front fills, but at least your post latency. I could be wrong on that. I'm not trying to tell anyone that my way of doing it is the end-all correct way. That's just the way that I've found works best for me. Do what works best for you. This is just a new thought process on things. Just mix the way you mix. Do what you do. Hopefully this is useful to someone. Or maybe opens up some ideas of, hey, let's try this or try that. Okay. So now, I'm not going to have every plugin I want to use here, but here's something to think about. Kick in and kick out. Typically, you have the kick in, which is like, let's say, a Beta 91. That's usually sitting right up within 2 inches of the batter head on the kick drum. Kick out is usually, nowadays everybody's using the D6, or it might be a Beta 52 or a 602 or AKG D112 or whatever you want to use on your kick out. So your kick in is a Beta 91, kick out is something else. Like I have a Sennheiser E901, which is their version of the Beta 91. I know which one I prefer more, and it may or may not be the one that I own. So here's something that you need to think about. So you got kick in, kick out. You have overheads. You have bass DI and a bass amp. Maybe this is a guitar like a 57 or a 609, and maybe this is a ribbon mic. Okay? So you have a dynamic and a ribbon. Or you could even do dynamic ribbon condenser. Well, you got to think about your time alignment. Another thing you could think about is your toms. When the drummer strikes tom 1, the sound will hit tom 1, it'll travel through air, and then it'll hit your overhead. Okay? So it strikes here, it hits the PA speaker first, and then there is a certain moment of time when the sound strikes this microphone and leaves the PA. Okay. I say that under the way I do it is my overheads, I treat them like drum kit mics, because you're not hitting the cymbals 24/7. You're just hitting them every so many beats. Yeah, there may be a bunch of cymbals here and there, but you're on kick, snare, hat most of the time. You do some tom rolls and then a cymbal crash. So kick, snare, tom, 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 crash. So why not take advantage of your overheads to capture more of the kit? That's how I mix. A lot of people just use them strictly as cymbal mics. Neither one of us are right, neither one of us are wrong. It's just the way we do it. So if you're doing a full kit mic setup, actually I'll go one further. A friend of mine actually does underheads. So his mics are pointed up underneath the cymbals. Sounds great. Works for him. It's how he does it. It's fine. Do what works for you. But if you're doing it the way I'm doing it, where your overheads capture the full kit in addition to the cymbals, then this is where what I'm talking about matters, where when it hits, or it might matter. It just depends on how you look at things. There's no right or wrong. This is just whatever you want to do. So if you want the sound of when the tom is struck and it goes through this microphone, if you want to align that with the time, the sound of here, here's something you can do. If you go to sound field, let's see if I have a plugin. I don't have a plugin, a license for it on this machine. I do have the license, I just don't have it with me. InPhase is an all-pass filter time alignment tool. So if you insert it here, there's videos on it, but you can do, if you look it up, you can find videos. If you do your side chain off your overhead, As the drummer hits, you could just ask the drummer to give you a couple hits on the tom, and you hit capture. It will actually show you the wavelengths, the sound waves, and then you can align them. If it is important to you for the sound of the tom through the tom mic, tom 1, to be aligned with the when it comes through the overhead, that's what you would want to do. Kick in and kick out, that is where it really matters, okay? Like you put in phase on, I do kick in, put in phase on kick in, I sidechain it off of kick out, I capture, and then I delay kick in to kick out. And it's usually 1.4 milliseconds. Usually around there. Snare top and snare bottom is another thing you could do. If you have a 57 on top and on bottom, usually they're not going to be facing the same direction, and the sound's going to hit them at different times. There's different thoughts on that as well. One thing that I like to do on the snare bottom, this is something that if you've never done it before, you can definitely try it. Let's go to channel. Let's go to our input, actually. Let's look at the channel here. This is all live. This is unplanned. Snare bottom. The snare bottom is, you've got these, they're called snares, but they're essentially springs that when the drummer strikes the snare top, the sound goes down and those things bounce up and down. One thing I like to do, down here at the bottom left where my mouse is, if you double click, you can enter a number. Try this. Okay, 7 milliseconds to turn it on. What that can do for you is it can take your snare drum from being the great sound that you already have to make it sound deeper and bigger. It's a pretty cool thing you could try. You don't have to do it. You can love it, you can hate it, but it's up to you. Whatever you want to do. That's a fun thing I like to do. Let's just turn that on. Okay. So that's some fun stuff. Bass DI and bass amp. We got to put our in phase on there. Sound is going to hit your bass DI before it hits the amp. So you may have to do some delay on your bass DI to get it aligned. Same with your 2 or 3 or however many guitar channels you want to do. Because a 57, the element is going to be in a different position in relation to the speaker than a ribbon mic or a condenser mic. Same with the 609 or whatever. So that's another thing you could do. Groups. Okay. So here's something that's important about the groups. We're going to go back to our groups. So we have our final right here. Okay. That's the end all, the end of it. Groups. When you're doing, let's go to this guy. So this is what I do with the crush bus. This is the dirty bus. Let's see. We want to do that. This is just, when the drummer is playing, your compression is going to live right around here. Right there. It's going to be just smashing. Okay? If you listen to that channel, it's going to be garbage. But this channel here, turn it on, but you're not doing, you just leave your threshold all the way up. What the whole point of this is you have to have the same plug-in on each one. Okay? So let's go to this is a pretty common one on a kick drum. Okay. So let's get rid of this. Okay. Yeah, there's a thing where if you don't have the license, it'll just go away. I have the same compressor on each one. The point of it is that they have the same latency. That's why you do that. Yeah, you could choose whatever compressor plug-in you want to use, but that's really what you want to do. If you do this drop down, right down here, we've got 0 latency. So right now, these racks are sitting at 0 latency. So the big thing is just use the same plugin on each one. So your drums get whatever plugin you like on drums. Bass, I prefer the LA3A on bass. I'm a bass player, and it sounds the best to my ear. So I'll put an LA3A here and here. I may go as far as on the bass channels, put it on there as well. Whatever those tubes are doing, I love it. It's so great what the tubes do. Guitars, I'm all over the place on guitar compressors. Sometimes it's the one plugin, where another time it's a different one, or it might even just be stock. Vocals, I love the LA2A on vocals, so I'll put that on there. Smash the ever living out of that one. Just leave that clear, and then this is your final, and then it runs through that. So hopefully there's some new ideas here. This is not a you have to do it this way, but this is a thought process on how to do it. One thing that I've found, this was interesting actually. Let's go to Emo F2. Okay. I got into a discussion on layering high-pass filters, and it turns out if you layer high-pass filters, it changes what your high-pass filter does. They build up. So, one thing that I've been toying around with is, let's go back to 0. Whoop. Actually, let's do full reset. Link them. I like to just enter numbers. Okay. So, here's something that I've been playing around with, is put a high-pass filter on the final at the very end instead of right here. I've been playing around with it. So instead of doing a high-pass filter on a channel, I've been going to the very end of the chain and doing a high-pass filter there. It's something I've just recently started doing to experiment to see what it does. It sounds different. For some reason, when I have a high-pass filter on, I'm sure somebody knows why, but if I do a high-pass filter on everything, every vocal, this is what you want to do. Absolutely you want to do this, high-pass everything, but it seemed like doing a high-pass filter on the final group, it sounded different. But I don't know if it sounded better or not. It was different. Sometimes it sounds different, you think it's better, when it's just different. So I don't know. It's something I'm experimenting with to see if it's better or if it's worse, or if there's certain situations where you should just high pass the final group versus individuals. One exception to that is right here. So the drums are the band. We have everything other than drums and vocals hitting this. So the bass guitar is going into that, the keyboards, the electrics. So if you were to high pass 100 on this, you'd lose the low end of your bass guitar. So you could leave that like that. One thing I do this though on the final. Whoop. Not everyone does this, but I do that. What this does is this 8K and above, this area here, it removes that. And that gives you more space for the air of vocals. So this is something I do. I do this. And this gives me some space on the vocals. And because I'm doing it in one spot, I did it one time as opposed to, for example, 28, that's 9, right? Yep, that's 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I used one low pass instead of 14 low passes, because I would low pass bass. This is what I would do on bass. This is my personal settings. Okay. Because I'm creating space for the air of the vocals and the air of the cymbals. So this is a starting point for me on the bass guitar. 30 hertz, maybe even I might even go to 45. As you can see, you've still got all this down here. Whatever frequency this may be 30. You're still allowing that to come through. You're still allowing, because it isn't a chop it off right where this vertical line right here where my mouse is, it doesn't chop it off. It still passes some signal. So that's something I would do. This is a starting point. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll actually go like that. As a bass player, that really hurts to do that. Just going that high, because now your low end's gone. So here's my starting point on a bass guitar. So however many channels I counted out, was that like a bunch? So instead of doing that many high pass and low pass filters, I did it in one spot here. For the low pass. Now this one, I may do this. Maybe not. I probably wouldn't actually, because of the whole stacking of high pass filters. So this is on these ones. This is where I would do stack it, or that. So the bass amp. So if you take this away and you hit Alt, this is a way of copying and pasting. See how it's 8K and 30? 30 and 8K? Okay. So now you could take this away. So then you just high pass your electric guitars. And there you are. 100, 100, 100. Acoustic guitars, I treat those different. This one I'll definitely do a 100. But then I personally love this guy, which I wish I had the license for these. I'll do another video in the future. I'll have videos where I have these plugins available. But the MEQ5 is a mid-range EQ. We can get into all that stuff later, but I like to put that on the acoustic guitar. I like to put maybe it's not installed. Vitamin. See, I don't have that one either. Vitamin is a harmonic distortion plugin that you can, if you do a stereo one, you can control the width of frequency ranges with it. So you could use it to get some more air on a keyboard, more body or more power on a keyboard. So I mean, here's some stuff, just some ideas of what you can do for laying out, configuring a console. I'm gonna go ahead and save this session. Save as. Let's call this. What should we call it? Demo room console. There you go. And yeah, so now I haven't done anything with panning yet or anything. We'll talk about that later. Maybe we won't. We'll see. But the big thing that I wanted to get across in this video is I get my inputs labeled. Then once my inputs are labeled what they are, I don't worry about the plugins yet. I just go to the end and work my way forward. Just because there's no group-to-group routing on this console, so I end up having to go to the end of things and work forward. So I do my right, left, sub, fill, and then I do my final groups, my returns, and then my sends. And actually, I just saw something here. These ones should be routed to the left, right, because those are not doing returns. I'm just using my vocal ones as returns. So, yeah. And then these are monitor mixes. But let's say we're doing 8 mixes. That gives me 2 more of these I could use if I wanted to. Yeah, so get my channels labeled. Then I go to the end and work forward. I probably would do some groups too. But I usually would do I labeled these before just to show the idea, but in my mind I'm thinking about these groups as I do my final groups. And first I was just labeling it drums, band, and vocals, but then I was starting to get a little bit lost, so I started adding the name final. And then I don't really know if this is better to just high pass in the one spot for every vocal or not. I don't know. I know that it just sounded different. After years and years and years of doing a high pass on everything, which is correct, you're supposed to, I just decided, hey, let's just try it in one spot and see. And because it was a different sound, I don't know that it was a better sound. It was just a different sound. The one thing for sure that I do, though, is I for sure do a high pass on the group for the band. That way I have one high pass on the band instead of all of these channels getting high passes. Because I want to work as fast as I possibly can. Like, I want to have a mix together in as few minutes as humanly possible, because I'm coming from the mindset of I've got 48 or 64 channels I have to go through, plus a stage swap, and I have 20 minutes to do it. So I try to get my console set up, and this goes back to console management. I try to get my console set up so that I can work as fast as humanly possible. So that's where I have, on the band, that's why I have the one high pass. Because then I do one thing as opposed to everything. Giving everything their own high pass filter would definitely be more custom to that channel, sure. And if it was a band that I was with constantly, oh yeah, everything would get their own. But for this, I'm treating this as if I'm the house guy at a festival and I have to go quick, you know? And in that situation, you'd usually have a monitor guy, so he would get all of these 16. This is a front of house setup. If this was a monitor board, I wouldn't have all these extra group processing going on. I wouldn't do that. I would have 16 monitors dedicated, and I might even tap into some of these and use these as monitors. Like, you could put your effects here. You could put a reverb and a delay, and then start at 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 and 16 is, let's see, 22. So that give you 22 monitor mixes. That could be mono or stereo. But this is the front of house view. And now, going back to our input gain, the gain video from Christmas Day last week, now I can gain everything up to get it to where it's supposed to be for input level on the console, to get this input level where it's supposed to be. And now, because I have a final group, when the drums are just rocking, I can pull that back, I can pull the band back, and I can leave the vocals at unity. Oh, I can't hear the lead singer for whatever reason? Instead of chasing my tail trying to figure it out, I can just go over here and pull this back, or I could even bump it up a little bit. It's just, something you could do. Another fun thing that can be done is, so we're sitting at an hour. I'll wrap it up with this. if you put a EQ, let's just go to this guy right here. Now you've got an overall EQ for your entire group. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out and checking out my channel, The Demo Room. If you find anything I'm doing here useful, go ahead and click like and subscribe. And hopefully something on here was useful for someone. I hope that this was of use to anyone whatsoever, or at least interesting. Thanks a bunch, and keep watching out, because I'm going to have tons and tons of other material coming up. I'm going to try to put together some 5-minute clips of miking techniques, maybe. We'll see. Thanks a bunch.